So we have a question. It says, what are your views or advice in regards to supporting children with mental health? I work in a school, and under the new curriculum in 2021, there are plans for mental health awareness to be taught. What do you think is important for teachers to know in order to be able to support their students?
Obi, do you want to go first?
I feel like, just because of the kids I was working with last year, one thing I realized is most kids don't know what services are available to them. So I think that's something important to discuss more and make kids aware of what actual services are about. If they don't want to talk to a teacher, there are many other organizations that could help. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that, Aaron, man. Thank you. Personally, I think when it comes to teaching mental health in schools, it's got to be done because, you know, in schools, and it depends on what key stage you're teaching as well. So I can look at it from key stage. I can look at it from key stage kind of 3, 4 secondary school perspectives, because that's where I work in now. But teaching, making kind of having mental health awareness. The problem I have and the issue I have with a lot of people is that there are a lot of people that will jump on a bandwagon. Like, having mental health and mental illness is not a joke at all. So, you know, I know people that have gone through a succession of kind of bad luck, for instance. I'm not saying it doesn't trigger anything, but there are a lot of people that have come to me and said, oh, do you know what, I'm depressed today. Or they make a joke of it, or they'll say, oh, you know, you'll say to somebody you're feeling a certain way, and they'll be like, oh, well, imagine how I'm feeling then. And they're taken away from how people actually feel. And in education, especially with children as well, it's very hard for children to even articulate their feelings, because, you know, with children, if they're feeling angry or whatever it is, hormones are going and all the rest of it. They're told it's everything else other than anything to do with mental health and mental illness, especially as the systems in place as well to obtain things like educational healthcare plans, or to even get assessed and diagnosed. That sometimes in itself, I've known cases where it's taken 2-3 years to get that. So it's gone from primary school to secondary school. If a primary school don't get it done in time, the secondary school have to start all over again. Your child could end up being out of education by the time they even get some sort of diagnosis. What I feel that it should be taught, or how I feel it should be approached with kids, is differentiation needs to happen when it comes to talking about mental health and mental illnesses, because they are two different things. Mental health is the stuff like depression and, you know, anxiety and stuff like that, and OCD. Those are kind of mental health stuff. Mental illnesses are chemical changes in your brain. So ADHD, bipolar, or being autistic, and depending on the spectrum that you are, those are all mental illnesses. And the two need to be differentiated in schools firstly, and then more understanding about how they can be interlinked. I think that the best thing to do is to gain support from those charities that are doing it now, and get those people to come in and start kind of teaching adults basically how to deliver them. Yes, like what Nadine would do, rather than people try to understand it themselves and then go and deliver it as a teacher. I wouldn't do that Well, I would do that personally, because I know a lot about stuff. But I think teachers need to approach organizations firstly, have them come in and train their staff members on how to deliver these things properly. Because with some children as well, it's going to bring up emotions, and there's a lot around safeguarding that needs to be looked at and considered. There's a lot around the support and the pastoral support that kids have in school, because if they don't really have a pastoral team there, somebody talks about mental health, that child ends up breaking down. It's who they're going to go to. Like what Aaron's saying, if children aren't aware of the services and they're not comfortable with the teachers that are there, that could lead to a child just doing something completely random. So kind of my aspect on it.
Me personally, like last summer, I worked with Off the Record, so youth counselling organisation. What we was doing is we was working with a football development team. So they were young boys under the age of 16. There was like 40 young boys at once. And what I would do is I'd deliver an hour of fitness. And then following that, their energy's up, they're kind of in a good mental space. We would then get a male speaker, to come in and tell their story. So for instance, Mark might come down and deliver his story about growing up and stuff like that, allowing the kids to then ask whatever they need to ask, and and kind of taking it from there. That proved to be very successful. A lot of children responded to that. There was discussions held after. Some children went up to the speaker and would ask questions. And we also, obviously, off the record, were there. So they provided information on what services are available, etc., etc. So I think sometimes merging, I'm a true believer in fitness anyway. I feel like mental health and physical health are very much connected, which is why me personally, I prioritize fitness because it gives me a mental release. But yeah, that's something I would definitely recommend.
I think from my point of view, obviously I've worked in nurseries right up to secondary school, SEN schools. And one of the key things is getting to know each individual child. And obviously for OB as a head of year, it's too hard for you, obviously, to get to know all of them in one go. But that's where obviously your teachers come in handy, and we'll get to know each child bit by bit, because you need to know their background. You need to know, take this in both. You need to know their background. You need to know what's going on with them at home, to know what they're dealing with when they come into school. Has that child eaten this morning? Because that alone has a lot to play in their behaviour and their mental state of mind when they're sitting in the classroom. And yeah, they might be acting out, but you need to know why they're acting out. And then go on from there. Obviously, with the older ones, it's tricky. Some of them will want to talk to you. Some of them will completely shut down. You have to know how to get across to that particular child. What works for one isn't going to work for the others. But with my workshop, I've tried to do it in many different ways where the activities will try and reach every child. So for one of them, it's like for the younger children, a balloon, writing down all the negative things that you have on the balloon, blow up the balloon and then pop it. Release all them negative things that people have said to you or what's going on in your face. So you understand that you can do something actively to be able to release it that way, because they're just sitting in there and they're sitting at home and they're harbouring all these thoughts that have gone on at school. Like, oh, this one said I'm fat. This one said I look like a twig. Do you know what I mean? Like, everyone's grown up being called some form of a name. I had it in school. It weren't nice. And yeah, till this day, I still had the name that they gave me in school. Like, it's never going to leave my head. But you have to find a way of being able to release it, and helping the children to do that will help them, teaching them about mental well-being. Yeah, you speak to them about mental health and mental health, but you also have to teach them about mental well-being, how to get to that point. So speaking to them about how they're eating, how they're sleeping, how much social media they're using, how much fitness they are doing, it all linked together. And it has to have a balance. It's not, oh, I'm sleeping all day and then, oh, I've only trained for like an hour. You have to have a regular balance for them to have a positive state of mind. And it all comes together. So schools definitely need to know more. They need to be able to understand mental illness. They need to understand every mental health. They need to understand everything that a child may or may not go through, or the thoughts that they may have in their head, to be able to answer the question. And it's a lot for one person to do. So I don't know how people are going to do it, but there are people out there that are willing to help. Like my company, I could have set it up where I wanted to make a profit from it. That's not what I want. I'm here to try and help. So I've done it as a community interest company. I have no interest in making money off of the company. It's simply to be able to get out there and reach the children and help them to understand and not get to, for my 32 years of age and only now just learning how to deal with mental health. You need to be at a younger age and learning how to do that and get through that. So,
Mark, question.
Yeah.
What kind of services are available at your school? Like, is there a counsellor on site? Is there...
Yeah, so without going into my school too much, but yeah, we've got counsellors on site. We've got a really good pastoral system, actually. Like, our school's really good with that. So I'm very grateful for the kind of service we got. Like, we got a really strong inclusion manager. We've got a really strong head of behaviour. We've got and we've got really good teachers as well that are they do take their time to get to know kids. And the dean said it quite rightly. I think people got to get to know kids because unfortunately sometimes you get provisions where differentiation doesn't happen. So every child's treated exactly the same. The same methods are shunted out to all kids, and that's not going to work at all. It's like Billy might have autism and David might have autism, but Billy's spectrum is completely different to David's. The same methods aren't going to work. It's like I'm a high functioning autistic person, but I still have traits that I understand where Billy and David are coming from because I suffer with autism to a certain extent. So I understand where they're coming from, but even their traits are different. So I have to approach both of them completely differently. I think it's about the more people, the more educators get to understand kids, their children that they work with more, the easier the relationship is with anyway. If that's just how it is, it's like the four of us had a really good, nice conversation yesterday. So we feel a lot more comfortable now. It's the same principles behind it all. The more you speak to somebody or the more you take time to get to know that person, even if it's a little bit, the more that person may open up or that more the person feels more comfortable.
You know what? I think that's a good point. And I'm not a teacher, but to play devil's advocate, I think it would be great for teachers to be able to have that kind of relationship with individual children. But do we feel that that is possible? Because I know certain teachers that are saying they're swamped. And I don't know at your school, Mark, but I know you're able to connect with children on a certain level.
Yeah.
Do you feel that maybe there should be specific roles implemented in order for this to happen rather than just every teacher taking a more personal approach?
You know what? I think that is a really good idea, and I think there needs to be more. I know they're trying to do it now, but I think that they need to use more of the service that are available to them. Because like Nadine's saying, she's not here looking for a profit. At the end of the day, she still needs to eat and survive, though. But she's not set this up in primarily to make money out of it. So there are organizations out there that end up obtaining their money that they need from other avenues and other streams because of the work that they put in these areas. Yeah. And it's about schools, I feel, looking for these services to bring them in, to get professionals to do that. Because what's the saying? No one man's it takes a village to raise
a child, yeah.
You know, to raise a child, or no one man is an island, or whatever the saying is, how it goes like that. You can't just do everything singly. You're right, Aaron. At the end of the day, teachers are swamped, and there are teachers that, you know, they don't want to be counsellors and they don't want to be these things, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. They love working with kids, but they just want to teach the kids and get them the grades that they need in order to go on and be like rich citizens of the country, or like just honourable citizens of the community. Whereas there are other teachers that really care about children's well-being and want to take time to get to know them. So there is a best of both, but I feel that it would be good for some of these organizations to stand up. And those organizations, especially, like, I can vouch for Nadine because I know that she's not like that at all, but there are organizations that are quite gluttonous and they do things because they want reward they want the shine. And so ultimately their thing is still not there for the community anyway. They just want the shine and the limelight. They want to win awards and they want to say we're an award-winning we're award-winning enterprise, when at the end of the day, the reward to me is the child, seeing the child develop and grow. That's the reward, ultimately. If you get acknowledged for your work, that's great, but there are a lot of organizations that maybe do it the other way around, and that isn't the best way either. So it's about kind of weeding those organizations out, getting organizations like yourself, Aaron, that you're doing, and like what the Dean has got, and using these organizations in order to then bring them in and just watch these children's lives change dramatically.
No, most definitely. There are a lot of organisations that are out there, but I mean, Mind is one where they are out there to try and support every child as much as they can. But as you said, some of the schools, they don't want to acknowledge outside help, because I've approached schools, I've made it very clear, like in my covering letter, what it is I do. There is no charge to the school. It's simply me coming in. I have my DBS, I have everything in place. It's just some schools are willing to allow you to come in and participate or hold an assembly to be able to educate the children, and some of them aren't. And whether or not it's just because that to them it's not a major deal, a major issue, but it is because it affects a lot of children. They just obviously can't see it. So then they just want to deal with the problem at hand, like, why is this child misbehaving? Let's exclude them. No, you need to get to the deeper root. because that child that is constantly being excluded from school to another school to another school to go into a centre, are they going to end up with good grades and a good job? No, 90% of the time they end up living that life on the road and then end up in prison. And it's simply because one person hasn't sat there and listened to them and tried to help them.
I think,
Exactly.
Mark, just touching on what we did last year. So myself and Mark were part of a group of adults that went into a school to, it was kind of like table talks. So you had people sitting at different tables with maybe 5 or 6 kids around each table. And then in a speed dating fashion, the kids would move around. And myself and Mark teamed up on a particular table. And just sitting down talking to the kids, and what the first thing we said to them is, without us talking, we want you to tell us what you think we do and how old you think we are. And Mark got blessed with like 31.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
But our table proved to be quite successful, and I think that was because it comes down to them kids being able to relate. I think they felt comfortable, even down to how we looked, how we were dressed. Kids were talking about muscles and certain things. It's like, if they feel they can relate to you, they're going to feel at ease and they're going to feel like they want to open up and discuss things. I feel sometimes the worst thing you can do is send someone into a school just for the sake of it. I feel like, Mark, why you've been so successful is because even if I was a kid, I'll be able to relate to you, which would make me feel comfortable opening up to you. I don't feel there's necessarily enough of that around.
Oh, do you know what? Thank you, Aaron, man. Yeah, I think for myself, I won't even look at it. I'll take, thank you for that. But
I wasn't talking about muscles with you, by the way, Mark.
Oh, do you know what, bro? I'm not too bad still. I'm not too bad. There's a picture on my Instagram. The back's starting to get a bit wide now, Aaron. That's old age done, to be honest. But you know, I think the reason I've managed to be able to I think the reason I've managed to relate to these kids is because there's no airs and graces. Like I tell people, it's no good me being an adult and forcing kids to respect me. That's not going to work. Like just having them force you must listen to me. I'm telling you what to do. That's not going to work at all. And especially we got to move with the times in which we work with now as well. And so I find that just finding common ground with a child allows that natural respect level to come anyway. Because I tell a child, I respect you. I really respect that child. And they'll be like, what? Why do you need to respect me? You're an adult. And I say, I respect you because you're an individual. And I respect you because you're going to change this country's landscape in order for me to live a better life when I'm older. And I need all the services that you guys may go off and find and create and in order as they get older. So it's about actually showing them respect and telling them that you respect them. And it's about that kind of having a relationship with them, but letting them know that at the same time you are a sense of authority. Because the moment you try to make them your friend and etc., like I'm not really in agreement with making Pickney my friend, but I am very much in agreement of having that kind of boundary where they feel that they can come to me as a positive role model, because a lot of that as well is a lot of the role models that a lot of these kids will see, especially in the generation and the times we live in now, where, so take me growing up, for instance, all of my favorite kind of hip hop artists and stuff like that lived out in America. And yes, I've got family in America, but I idolized them from across the pond. So if I was trying to mimic some of the things that they were doing, etc., it was more just to do with the music and the fashion. Whereas now, a lot of these rappers and people that are in high profile, and well done to them and credit to them, but a lot of them now are really accessible. So it could be that, I don't know, one of these guys' names lives in Peckham and the fans of them live 2 minutes away from him. And if he's not necessarily doing things in a positive light, of course, they're going to look to that and think this is what we need to be doing and this is what we need to aspire to. So it's about kind of creating that platform where you yourselves, as everybody, each one of us, act as if we are a role model as well. So be relatable, but show us that we're role models. So I'm a role model within the school that I work in. I feel like I'm a role model when I'm on the street as well, because I emulate myself a certain way, but I let these kids know that you still can't go around me. I still understand what you're talking about. You can't use certain names against me because I understand what you're saying. You can't come here and tell me I'm an op because I know what an op means, and I'm still going to bad you up anyway. I'm still going to cuss you. You can't come and tell me, oh, look at sir, he's a pagan, because A, I know what a pagan is, and I've got a little smoke back for them as well. I've got my little things. I already get rid of everything in the beginning. When I start in any job I do, where I say to them, I'm bored. Yes, my glasses are thick. Anything else? There's nothing else. There's no ammunition for them now. So when I'm ready to pepper them, that's what I do. So it's about being relatable, like you said, like everyone said, and I think somebody asked that in the questions anyway, or they'll put in these kind of things up as statements. It is just about being relatable, but at the same time, being relatable and being a role model. So they look at you as a pinnacle of somebody that they may want to aspire to.
I would say, I think equally, I always believe that before learning first starts from home. And I think it's all fair and good and great for us to educate the kids, but if you don't educate the parents so that they know and they're able to talk to their kids, because that is where you first learn. And I think that parents need to be educated first. And if you're going to educate the kids, then maybe you should try to look at bringing the parents into it. I mean, I know a lot of ethnic families who, if you mention mental health, then they'll be like, what's that? No way, my son or my daughter doesn't have that. What are you talking about? What is that? No. Or even if it, because can you imagine, your child goes to school, your teacher's teaching them all these key skills that you guys are speaking about, and the child goes home to mum and says, Mum, I think that I have autism, or I think that I have ADHD. The mum is going to look at the child and say, no, you don't. What are you talking about? And 10 chances to 1, the parent is going to want to take the child to school and have a big uproar about, why are you teaching my child this? Why are you doing this? Why are you putting words and things into their head? These things don't exist. Which is why I think it's important and it's vital for the parent and the school to be both on the same team.
Yeah, do you know, I agree. It's like my school, we have a good, I use the word holistic. That's the word, I love using that word. It's a holistic approach. So I know we're always encouraged to interact with parents and stuff, and I know I do it myself particularly anyway. So I'm all about meeting the parents and speaking to the parents. And I've been quite lucky where I've been successful in the sense that some of the parents that I've come across over the past years of being in education or doing kind of youth stuff outside, they've taken my advice on maybe looking at medication as an option, or actually exploring the fact that their child might have something, and they've gone and actually looked into it. Because I think for a lot of people as well, they look at mental, they just hear the word mental, and I know not my generation, but like my father and stuff, he would think Springfield, Maudsley, you have to be absolutely mad. No, you don't have that. And that's not what mental health is about. Mental, it's not just you get sectioned and then you're put away and stuff like that as well. It's the smaller things. So I think it's breaking down those barriers for the generation kind of above me. Not everybody, because it's not, I can only talk for my father, but I know if I went to my dad and I said to him back in the day, I've got autism, he'd be like, hey, yeah. We'll go back to Nigeria. There's no, you might have this and you might have that. He's, hey, Florence, your son, he wants to say his brain's not working. He's not my child. He's not my son. And then so now you're having to battle that as well, because you're thinking, oh my God, my dad's saying I'm not his son. I know that there's something wrong with my brain, but I still need to do well. You can't do all of that. So like you're saying, Reese, it is about actually educating parents as well. So in our school, I know we take a really good approach to that, where we bring everybody in and all the different like sections and all the different agencies work together to try anyway to raise the awareness of it.
Okay, so I know that we've covered the topic on education and things like that. I was wondering if you guys have anything else to touch on that, because
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I haven't spoken before, but I've been in education all of my life. First as a teacher and then as a youth worker. And what you've talked about is relationships with the kids, relationships with the parents. But one thing that I have found is that often teachers don't have enough of a relationship with each other. And I think that teachers need to start talking to each other and feeling that they can support each other. We talk about being non-judgmental towards young people, or at least I hope we do, because that's the first way in which we make ourselves accessible, by putting out that I'm not judging you as a person. You can talk to me. I don't think you're a bad person. Now, I'm not sure that we're doing that as teachers. At least I found that there has been a lack of that, a lack of mutual support, a lack of non-judgmentalism when it comes to professionals talking to each other. And so listening to you guys talking to each other today has been enlightening for me. I like to see that. And I think that that's what I'd like to see in schools, among professionals, among youth workers. And I just wonder if that's really possible, because there's so much pressure on teachers, on youth workers to actually perform and to be a certain way that we start judging ourselves. I mean, do you guys have experience of actually sitting down as professionals and talking to yourself, talking to each other, unburdening yourselves? Is that possible?
Do you know what? I'll call you sir. I know your name's Gavin, but I will call you sir. It's a really good question. Unfortunately, I think there's so many different things to it. There's our ethnicity as such that gets incorporated into that, because if you go and tell somebody else about something, they'll look at you and think, okay, I can go and use that against you, or I can harbor that information and then go present it another way. And I think this is where we do fail as kind of what we're supposed to be deemed as pillars of the community, because it's either self-gain, or those that you feel that you want to speak to, you speak to them, and then you feel that they've got one up against you. And especially if you're already suffering with something as it is. So I'll take, for instance, like all the stuff I've mentioned beforehand, the ailments that I have. So as soon as I sometimes impart information, I think, oh my God, what a day, and I've suffered because of this. I can see that person's brain's ticking, and they're thinking, I don't really get what he looks like, but oh, so he's got a weakness. And then now you're fearful that that colleague of yours or that person that you've gone to speak to is going to go off and go and tell somebody else. And then now you're just living in fear. You're going to work in fear. And it is really unfortunate. But what is enlightening, like you just said, is that I've been able to speak to, I've got 3 people here, well now 4 people that I've interacted with today, and we're all on the same wavelength. So hopefully if we can spread that out everywhere and show people more and more of these platforms. And in a way, I hope that this whole Corona thing, whether I believe in it or not, what I do understand is now it should have brought people closer together. Families that should have been at home isolating together. So hopefully they got to explore their families a bit more and actually start opening up and talking. It's allowed things like this to happen, where we can reach any part of the world and talk to people and interact with people and get to meet new people. And I understand that even though we come from different backgrounds and etc., we still have the same generic goals, and we're still trying to reach and target everywhere. So I hope this whole kind of Corona episode has brought that out in people, to understand that we can move as one person and move forwards with different ways of seeing things and viewing things. But it's always good to get somebody else's perspective anyway.
The schools I've worked in, one in particular, I was really close with a lot of the teachers. And I think because I went in as an unqualified teacher, I was only meant to be there to support one child, but I was quite open with the stuff I can do, the stuff I can't do, the stuff I was willing to learn. And that helped me grow, as well as learning from the teachers, because they were able to support me in all areas. Like I said, one thing that obviously I've never mentioned before is when I had my ectopic, I was actually in class in school, and I was in the middle of a phonics lesson, and they were like, "You don't look good, like you need to go." I wasn't listening to them. I carried on. I went through the phonics lesson, and they were all so supportive afterwards. And I think it just depends on the relationships you have. I mean, I was working with year 1, so I had a relationship with every one of the year 1 teachers. So we were able to bounce off of each other. We could automatically see when one was having a good day from the other one that wasn't, so that we was able to support each other within the class, so that if the class were doing too much that day and you could see that at that point the teacher was at breaking point, you can automatically step in before they explode. So it's also about having that sort of relationship with the teachers, because they're not then going to spiral after school, because they've had that support from the person that they needed there and then, rather than having to wait and then try and deal with it. So that for me definitely helped, and it helped to grow my relationship with them afterwards. So it is definitely about building a good relationship with your team. It's about who you trust as well, because you do have some of them that are just out to get you and will do the absolute most to try and get you to mess up so that they look better. But not everyone's like that, and it's just about your way of thinking, how you want to approach them.
So I just want to switch direction a little bit, still staying on the topic, but just switching it from children to men, a particular gender, black men, to be honest. I find that, me personally, I found that our black men, it's almost like a spoof, which is they are afraid to speak up and say, I have a mental illness. They are afraid to express themselves out of fear of being laughed at, maybe, or being thought of as less manly, or those kind of things. And I really want to touch on that, and I want to know from the men in this room what it is that we as women can do to support you, what it is that we can do to, I guess, get you onto the track that you want to be on. How can we support you?
Mark, do you wanna say something?
Yeah, I'll kick off because after this I've got to shoot off because I've got to go and take my kids back to their mummy. So, but I will talk on this part of it. It's taken me a long time to actually open up because I was taught growing up, my heritage is Nigerian, so I was always told, like I know I've mentioned that before, but the reason I'm mentioning it now is I was always told, academically, you guys are clever, you guys need to crack on with things, do things, and etc. And so when I wasn't able to do that, like I was really good at certain things, basketball I was amazing at, I got something I tell some people, not everybody, I got the chance to go and play in America, to go and play basketball in America. I had the scout from America come to my house as well as my coach at the time, but that was turned down. I was really good at art. I was very good at creative stuff, very similar to my mum actually. But I had to go through the academic route, and I struggled with that because I could do everything really well. So coursework and stuff like that, really good at doing stuff like that. But when it came to exams, I couldn't process the information that was there in order to do well. So eventually those kind of exam grades leveled off my coursework grades and brought them down, dragged them all down. So I was always looked at as a kind of failure in that sense. In school, I was always told I wasn't going to amount to much anyway. I was always told, like, your son's extremely clever, but he doesn't apply himself. He talks too much, all the rest of it. And then you grow up and you go through kind of those teenage moments of time where you go off, your hormones kicking, you want to go and talk to girls. I was always awkward talking to women. I never knew how to chat up a girl. I still don't know how, to be honest. I've got my kids and stuff like that, but I still don't know how to do it. I'm a very awkward person, just in general. You've got all of these things, but society looks at you and says that you're the man. So you've got to know how to be the man. You've got to be cool. You've got to be calm. You've got to be collected. It's like, this is a prime example, and I'll give you this now. Like, I'm looking at, I've got the screen in 4, so I can see myself, I can see Gavin, I can see Nadine, I can see Aaron. I've been looking at Nadine. Nadine looks relaxed and she just looks chilled out on her bed. I'm looking at Gavin and I'm thinking, how can I be more like him? He looks like a very astute, wise man. And this is how much sometimes your pride kicks in. I'm only admitting this now because the question was asked, but I would never have said anything if this question wasn't raised. And I look at Gavin and I think, am I, that's not the kind of man I'm asserting myself to be. I'm not being assertive like Gavin. I'm not being assertive like Aaron. Aaron's got, like, the poses he's doing and the way in which he's got himself looking at the camera. I've moved my camera left, right, center. I don't feel like I'm sitting upright. I don't feel like I'm being that much of a man. To admit something like that is a really hard thing to do. And it's taken me years to admit these things because other people might see me as weak.
Yeah, but to us, you seem like the most assertive person here because you've been the person who's been talking most. So, I mean, you've been taking responsibility for a lot of the conversation.
That's because I talk a lot, Gavin, just in general.
As the host, as someone who's hosting this, no, seriously, you have been leading it. It's been flowing. You've had a lot of input towards this, which is why I came to you, which is why I asked to reach out to you, because you speak a lot of truth. You had a lot of value, and I know you may think that you don't see yourself, or you don't think that you come across like a man, but you're very manly. You're very assertive. Like, in the sense that I would be happy to follow you because you are leading. You're speaking everything is fluent. So I think that's
This
my
is
You know,
this is all really bizarre. Yeah, it's all really bizarre. Okay, thank you.
sorry, Mark.
Yeah.
We've had talks, just bringing back to the question, which was how can women help uplift us men? Was that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think relationships, in terms of me personally, when I'm in a relationship, the one person that I want to uplift me is my partner. And I know we've touched base, Mark, where we've been in relationships where that might not necessarily have happened. And that can have such a negative effect when it doesn't happen. And I think I speak for myself. I seem to take a role of, I call like hero. I'm always trying to be the hero. I'm always trying to uplift someone else. I'm always trying to make sure someone else is okay. And I don't receive it well. I almost don't allow for the woman to come and check on me or do certain things for me, because it's like, no, I've got this. I've got this. Let me have this. Let me have that. But you're not realizing that's draining your battery. That's slowly starting to drain your battery. And before you know it, me personally, I always say, I build up, build up, build up. I take on a lot, but when I crash, I'm gone. I'm wiped out. But it might take me a while to get there. And I feel like it's just so important for the person that you're with to, again, understand that, but also, it's hard, but if they need to force you, put a bit of pressure on you, like, no, you're not doing this, take a seat, I've got this, you've been doing too much. That, to me, anyway, shows that they care. Like, putting a bit of extra pressure sometimes, making me sit down, making me take a break. Like, that to me is what I would want from a woman in my life anyway. Understanding and knowing me enough to know when to step in. But I know we've had that talk, Mark.
Yeah, and we have had that talk because we've been, like we're saying, we've been in situations where, like, I'm very much on the understanding of myself. I'm not saying I'm perfect, far from it, actually, but I'm always the type of person, if I do something wrong, I will apologize and I will say, look, I will try and do better. I've just always been with people that don't want to reciprocate that, so they end up not wanting to change themselves. So you end up in a stage where you've grown and that person hasn't, and then it leads to those questions before. How can you help somebody? You can't help somebody. You can drag a horse to the water, but you can't make them drink. And at the end of the day, the way I look at it is that I personally think it's by, like, women like yourselves doing what you're doing now. It's the listening to the man sometimes, not listening to understand, not listening to just hear. I think is a key thing across the board in general, because a lot of people just listen to hear and they don't listen to understand. And then it's little things sometimes, I think, with men, because with men we do give our signs. I know we show strength and etc., but we do give those signs where we do ask for help. And sometimes you'll get a woman or even your male friend or whatever it is, because it's not necessarily, when we talk about relationships, I can't look at it just as a woman and man fact. It's men and men, etc. So relationships now take on different forms, and it's about that whole trying to understand where that person's coming from and looking at the little nuances, and not necessarily just, because one thing I really hate is when if I say to somebody, I'm really tired today and my brain's not working, they say, oh my God, I feel exactly the same. So imagine how I feel then. That doesn't help, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to actually reach out to that person and telling them that you're helpless at this moment. You don't feel good. But what people are doing in that circumstance is listening to just hear. So then they're just saying to you that basically, well, what you're going through, I'm going through 10 times worse. And I know that as men, we will stop at that point and we won't continue talking anymore, because there's no point in me talking, because now it seems like it's a competition.
Yeah.
I've then got to come up with something more. So now you start talking, oh, well, my leg fell off earlier today. And somebody says, oh, well, my 2 arms fell off. And it's like, okay, well, my genitalia's all gone. Everything gone now, everything mash up. And they're like, well, actually, I've got no body. This is just something underneath the cloak. It's a competition. Stupid analogy, I know, but I'm just trying to make people understand it becomes a competition. Eventually, a man will just be like, I don't need this. So they just suffer in silence. And then that's when sometimes it can lead to them becoming angry, or it leads to them they start withdrawing from a woman, or sometimes it leads to that fact, and I don't want to talk on it because this is the subject, but sometimes men will go off and look for another woman because they don't feel like they get what they need at home. because then they think, oh, well, I tried to talk to my woman, she's not listening. And then, there's a woman that you will get and you talk to that woman and she understands you.
But then
and
you
she's
think
listening to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you end up in the same situation again.
Yeah.
It's a spiral, it's a horrible spiraling downward effect. But that's just an indication as to, I think, men's minds, and I can't talk on all men. So that's an indication because I have been that way before in the past, and I'm not afraid to admit that I've been like that in the past, in my early 20s and etc. When I was looking for people to understand me. Unfortunately, I went from one to one to one to one, trying to think, well, if they don't understand me, maybe the next one will, maybe the next one will. And that's come as a detriment to me because I never took time out to heal myself, like you were saying, Aaron. I never took time out to try and heal myself. I've had to heal myself whilst being with people, and that doesn't always work either.
Mm-hmm. It's actually ironic you touched on that point because I was just having this conversation earlier before we jumped on here, and someone exactly said that to me, which was I'm just actually trying to read it so I'm not saying the wrong thing. But he actually did say to me that he's learning to love himself properly before he's committing into anything else, because that is so much more important. And he can't be ready until he has learned to love himself properly. And what I find with a lot of men, especially the black men that I've spoken to, is they always, whenever they speak to someone, if there's another black guy in the room or another guy in the room and you guys are sharing stories, sometimes one guy will shy away and be like, well, actually, my mental health isn't as bad as that one, or it's not worth as much as that other one. But nobody's mental health is more important than anyone else's.
No.
We all walk that journey, and I think it's so important that man, woman, child, we are all in this together. I know we feel alone more than 100% of the time, but we're not alone. We actually, there's 4 of us here who've openly said, listen, I suffer with this. We're not alone.
I think when it comes to men, our egos are detriment. It's always, to me anyway, if I was to go into a room and, for instance, I feel like Mark's a very good speaker, that would automatically shut me away. But yet Mark's there thinking Aaron looks like this and Aaron's relaxed, and we're almost battling without even realizing it. But by battling, we're actually putting ourselves down. And to me, it's a male ego thing, and I've struggled for years with it, and I still don't know how to overcome that. To be completely honest.
You know, I think you're right, because I'm going to have to shoot off now, but I think you're right. Firstly, I just want to say thank you to everybody, and thank you guys for even having me here. To me, it's been amazing, and it's what I've needed, clearly, because I now feel a lot better than I did at the start of this conversation. And I feel like I can go off and enjoy myself and my kids a bit more now, and take the time to love them like I know I love them and stuff. So God bless you all. What I would say is that you're right with it. It's like, I think with men and egos, what I struggle with is that I'm not naive in the sense that I'm just an idiot. I just walk around with idiot eyes on and look at everything and everything's rosy. But I'm naive in the sense that I show my heart to everybody. That's just how I am. I show it, and it's like I'll say something and I mean it in the most genuine of ways. And sometimes I don't understand how somebody can misinterpret my genuineness. And that's what I find really hard sometimes. It's like I will say to somebody, you look amazing. You look really good. And somebody will go off and say, oh, I think my man's just chatting rubbish or whatever, because they've got their own perception of what they think I am. Like just now, talking about perceptions, I'm here saying that Gavin looks a certain way. Gavin reminds me of that guy. Who's that really well-known, he's an activist here, talks really well. What's his name? When I find it, the thing is he your granddad?
He's my granddad.
Reese.
Oh, is he your granddad, Reese?
Yeah.
When I find it, it's Dominic. Is it Duncan? It's Duncan something or Dominic something. Really well-to-do man here. You remind me of him, Gavin. Anyway, I'm looking at you guys and I think.
Are you just thinking of Darkest How?
Darkest, that's who I'm thinking of. Yes, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
That's who.
People have said that before, but I'd like to say thank you, Mark, and I'd like to say thanks to everyone, because this conversation has become has been more than I anticipated. I'm so glad that people are talking this way. We need much more of that. And thank you for the compliments. I would like to think that I've come to a space in my life where I'm dropping ego, where I can say, and I can afford to say, look, I'm actually pretty stupid. Whether you accept that or not, I'm prepared to say that, look, I've got lots of faults. There are things that I don't see. There are weaknesses that I have, and I'm okay about that. So what? I mean, it doesn't matter how people see me. It's nice to be looked at well, but in the end, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter to my life. My life's not threatened by the way that people perceive me. I can go out and I can do my Tai Chi. I liked what Aaron was saying, that you've got to find that space. For some people, it's physical exercise. For me, it's meditation, it's Tai Chi. I've got that space where I'm me, where I feel that I'm connected to something higher. And, the insecurities that I still have, even at 67 years of age, in one sense,
60.
it doesn't really matter. I can give that away. I can say, yeah, I'm not judging you. I don't really care about your judgments of me. We're all human beings together, and we've got to be enlightened together. In a sense, it doesn't really matter if I become enlightened, if I become wise, if the people around me aren't, because we've got to do something together to make, to make this world a better place and to make our lives comfortable.
Can I just ask, Gavin?
Thanks. I mean,
Gavin,
thanks for being part of this.
Gavin, can I just ask, how long have you been doing Tai Chi for?
About 7 years, actually.
Okay.
Do you know what? To the ladies here, because I'm gone now, I've said it about 10, but to the ladies here, I just thank you more than I could even make you comprehend. I will try and express it in ways after this. Gavin, Reese, I'm adopting your granddad. I've said it straight.
Yeah,
so
me too.
I've adopted 67. So Mark Seeley's my name now.
Thank you guys for dinner then, right?
Yeah. Straight. Mark Seeley's my surname. I'm claiming Seeley now. Thank you. I hope I look good enough to embrace that surname and take it on. Aaron, I love you as a brother, and I will say that I'm still on the journey. I know I'm not always going to respond to you, bro. I'm not, but I do want to change. I know I have my faults, and I do want to change, bro, and it will happen. With the likes of just your continued support, it will happen. But to everybody, God bless. I think as men, we just need to stop with the egos and just talk, because I'll come off this and I'll think I'm less of a man, or I think that I've been looked at now and people are going to look at me as weak or whatever. But like Gavin said, it's getting to a place where I just think, well, that's your opinion. I know I'm not weak and I can't care about it. I still do, unfortunately, but God bless you all anyway. God bless. Thank you so much indeed, guys.
Thank you so much.
Take care, all right?
Thank you.
Bye.
Right. So unfortunately Mark had to go, but I don't know if you guys have anything else you want to discuss in regards to it, if there's any other questions that there are in regards to this on mental health for women. I mean, we can speak on women, but I don't know, does anybody want to juggle that? Nadine, do you have anything to say on that, or?
You feel it's different for women than for men? Are there different issues?
I feel like as a woman, it's really hard because especially for females, when they suffer with depression and anxiety, they have this stigma of they can tolerate pain. You can push them as far as you can, their threshold is higher or in regards to emotional pain, not physical, but emotionally, you can push a female far. You can do these kind of things and she's not going to break, which I think is really silly because our pain isn't any less than a man's, or our pain or our pride isn't any less dented or hurt than a male's pride. It's just, I think for me, as a woman, it's really difficult because I could say to someone, I'm really not feeling well, or like mentally I'm drained, I'm exhausted, and someone will just look at me and be like, oh, just go take a rest, you'll be fine. But it's not that. It's not go take a rest, you'll be fine. It's I genuinely am battling here and I need someone to grab me. And for me, I feel like I am not a woman that I'm not a woman that someone will take care of. I'm one of those women where I get up, I do what I have to do for me. I don't know anyone to take care of me. So when that stuff does come into place and it does happen, it's like it hits me hard. Like I don't know where to turn. And it's usually my female friends that will come and lift me up. But we don't have that support from I don't feel like our fellow brothers are there to support us as Black women in what we're doing. Nadine?
I think the guys, they don't necessarily know what to do or what to say, or if I say this, is she going to go off on one? Regardless of how we react, I think people should, because we need to know that we still have that support from you guys, not just from our females. I know I can message Reese about anything. I'll speak to a guy about it, and it's just like, well, why did you go and do no, it's just you can learn how to be there emotionally as well, and not we don't look at a guy and think you're any less of a man because you're speaking about your emotions. No, not at all. We'll probably think you're more of a man for opening up, because it allows us to understand you that bit more as well. So, yeah.
Are you ladies more inclined to open up to a man if he's open up to you first?
No, I think I open up either way. It's just you open up. There's a barrier for me. I'll open up to a certain extent. If you open up, I will open up more. If you don't, that barrier is staying where it is, and that's that.
Yeah, I would tell you enough to give you an idea of who I am, but I would never divulge things to you that I know you could use against me or hurt me.
Yeah.
In that.
I think it's just about having that balance, and we'll share more.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes guys don't want to share or don't feel they can share, and some don't even know how to. I think that's just a lot of because of their background and the way they were raised, and it's just well.
And I think also a lot of men don't realize that as a woman in a relationship as well, when our partner may suffer from mental health, it really, really, really does affect us. And although you think that it doesn't, it does in many ways. We don't sleep, we don't eat, we know, we can feel it, especially if you lie in a bed every night next to your partner, or you live with your partner, or you're constantly with your partner all the time. We know, we can feel it. The shift is off, the power's off, your attention's off, you're thinking all over the place. We can feel it. And when we can feel it, and the fact that we don't know what to do, we ourselves end up in a depressive state as a knock-on effect, because we feel like we can't be a woman and do something simple as making you smile or make you feel less stressed or things like that. And I think that it's a heavy weight on our shoulders as women. I believe that.
I think it works both ways, actually.
Yeah, I mean, it does go both ways, but again, it comes to the point, like what Nadine was saying, is some men won't accept that, or they won't acknowledge that. That's the problem.
So it's about individuals, not just about men and women. It's about how people relate to each other.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I think everybody, it's been a great conversation. It's been a great session. I mean, if you guys want another one where we can go into depth in other things, then go ahead and send over some questions. I'll be more than happy if Aaron and Mark and Granddad is available. We can always go through this and do this again. But I personally just want to say thank you to everybody. I know I was last minute in doing this, but just jumping on board and coming behind me and supporting me to deliver such an amazing content. It's been amazing. I thank you guys so much.
Thanks for having me, ladies. Really appreciate it. Gavin, pleasure to meet you.
Good meeting you.
Thanks, Aaron.
And well done, Marissa.
Thank you, Granddad. All right, guys, have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care, guys.
Bye.